It's so nice to see this auditorium filled, but I would only expect this, no less, when we have someone like Tyree here with us tonight. So my name is Joe Rose. I'm the director of the museum. Thrilled to see you all here and have Tyree, Jenenne, and MaryAnn Wilkinson with us. Tonight there'll be a discussion, a dialogue on the Art of Tyree Guyton, a 30-year journey. We will first hear from the artist Tyree Guyton, the executive director of the Heidelberg Project, and Jenenne Whitfield, and then our exhibition curator, MaryAnn Wilkinson. That'll be followed by a series of Q&A. The store is open tonight, and then the gallery will be open. We have I'm going to probably go off script. So, Tyree is an amazing artist. We love him immensely. And we were just thrilled to do this show. That Tyree represents a very special sensibility, and he's one of these things that any curator, director, museum professional loves to see, seeing an artist grow, come into their own, and then blossom beyond that. Many artists hit a ceiling, and you still love them. Tyree has surpassed his ceiling, and that is what makes him even more wonderful. He's best known for his work at the Heidelberg Project, and many people are unaware. I mean, yes, Tyree's been doing that as one component of his career for 30 years, but what it also sparked, which many are unaware of, but those of us who review grant applications for urban intervention or arts in the cities, they refer to this term as Heidelbergian, which is this aspect of claiming your territory, not leaving your city, but reclaiming it by activities, whether it's adorning the buildings with objects that promote or inspire happiness, like Tyree has done. But the origin of that term is really what Tyree did. He was one of the first who said, I'm not leaving here, I'm going to take over this neighborhood, I'm going to make it a place people want to be part of, changing the notion of flight to happiness and urban intervention. That has become a typology that's taken off across the US and even into Europe. So what happens is you have this amazing phenomenon of one person's interest tied back to art, tied back to family, and he's grown beyond that as well. So what's amazing is that we can show his work with Heidelberg, his amazing hood works, the prints, the dot houses, and then his more recent work as a visiting artist in Switzerland. So his work has grown beyond being identified with Heidelberg. And it's now these two parallel existences, the legacy of Heidelberg, which is extremely important, but Tyree as his own artist. Removed from that, but elements are still there because we all know, as any artist or any person, we are a product of where we're from, and we take that with us into our careers. And his newest work upstairs is really spectacular, that he also will be part of an exhibit in Shanghai, the Shanghai Biennale. So it's really quite spectacular that that's taking place. And many of us like to think of Tyree as our local artist from Detroit, but he's actually global now, and we no longer can say he's just ours. But it's great when an artist grows like that. And as a museum director, you want to bring in artists into your collections or showcase them in your community and see them grow and blossom. I'm really thrilled to be part of the latter part of that, where I get to spend time with Tyree and Jenenne and just see what an amazing thing he's done. Many people on campus think highly of him, as you can tell, and one I would say would be Ray Silverman, who's the director of the DAS galleries on campus, which is in the Humanities Building. And in that location, there also is another exhibition, which is called What Time Is It? Tyree Guyton New Work. And that's located at the ground floor of the Haven Hall building up until November 6th. There's also a publication that has been produced through I'm going to get the abbreviation wrong, it's DAS, showcasing Tyree's work. Now, for us to do the show, what we did is we're fortunate enough to have a wonderful adjunct curator, MaryAnn Wilkinson, who was for a very long time at the DIA, modern contemporary curator. It happened to be that now she's the director of exhibitions at the School of Architecture, and when I realized that she was no longer at the DIA, and knowing her legacy as a curator, I said, well, she has to play with us, because she has to be part of museum culture, which By being a museum, it just happens. So MaryAnn became our adjunct modern art curator. And when the show came up, she was thrilled with the idea to be our guest curator because she knows Tyree's work and understands Tyree, and there's a relationship there. And the best way to show someone's work or reveal aspects of who they are as an artist, past, present, or future, or have a dialogue is someone who's been part of the culture and part of that family that ushered them through and have been there through all the highs and lows. So we're really thrilled that we have MaryAnn playing this role for us. The show shows it, and also this dialogue will also reflect that. We're also quite happy that in our store we have limited edition prints of Tyree's work available. So I know later I'm getting two, and I hope you all do too. So on that note, I'm just going to let this turn over to the next round to MaryAnn, and MaryAnn will introduce both Tyree and Jenenne Whitfield, who's the executive director of the Heidelberg Foundation.
What? No, I have my own, thank you.
I don't want to have you slow up.
Thank you, Joe. It's really important that you all know that I am not Tyree Guyton. I'm speaking first, and I am not Tyree Guyton. But I am incredibly privileged to have known Tyree for a long, long time. And the 30 years is kind of a little daunting because if he's been working on the Heidelberg Project for 30 years, that means that I've been looking at the Heidelberg Project for 30 years, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. But I have been visiting and watching the evolution of the Heidelberg Project more or less since its beginnings in 1986, which roughly coincides with my own move to Detroit. Detroit was a very different place in 1986, a different set of communities, a different political climate, and certainly a different world of art and aesthetics. What has not changed over the last 3 decades is the belief among many of us that art is important, that art can change the world, or at least change some minds. While we may not have the dewy-eyed eagerness that once characterized that fervor, the Heidelberg Project is there to remind us that our perhaps irrational belief that art can change the world is not misplaced. The project brings together threads of fine art, popular art, folk or outsider art, political protest, sustainability, recycling, urban design and planning, spirituality, and especially hope. I'd like to set the stage for Tyree and Jenenne to follow me. I know that's who you're really interested in listening to. They will talk directly about the project, past, present, and future. But first, I want to make a few remarks about the artistic and spiritual heritage of the Heidelberg Project. The Heidelberg Project is one of the largest, best-known, and long-running site-specific art installations in the country. Celebrating its 30th anniversary in 2016, the project has transformed the Detroit neighborhood, covering abandoned houses, the street, and the surrounding area with found objects and paintings that express vivid personal and social themes. Occupying more than 2 blocks along Heidelberg Street on the city's east side, the project is a surprising interlude in the quiet, sparsely populated neighborhood. For those of you who don't know or haven't figured it out already, the Heidelberg Project has been the life's work of artist Tyree Guyton. Guyton grew up on Heidelberg Street, one of 9 children, raised in poverty by a single mother who, like all Depression-era children, never threw anything away. For Guyton, objects and materials took on a privileged status. His grandfather, Sam Mackey, whom you see in the slide on the left with Tyree, a house painter with an avocation to be a fine artist, gave the young Tyree a paintbrush and encouraged him to paint as an alternative to drugs and guns. But it was not until Tyree became a young man, after some time in the Army, some unsatisfying jobs, and art classes at the College for Creative Studies in Detroit, that he was able to imagine a future. He returned to Heidelberg Street, and he, his grandfather, and his first wife, Karen, began the Heidelberg Project. Finding the neighborhood failing and often dangerous, they began to transform it by art. They encouraged neighborhood children to help them gather discarded objects, from toys and clothes to televisions and furniture, a process that would both clean up the neighborhood and provide a ready medium for their art. Guyton and Mackey painted abandoned houses on the street with bright house paints and attached objects to the exteriors, turning them into gigantic thematic assemblage sculptures. Polka dots and bright colors festooned the street surfaces and decorated many structures. The polka dots, based on the shape of jelly beans, Mackey's favorite candy, were an early and enduring motif, one that for Guyton became both a signature and a symbol of universality and inclusion. For him, the project was not simply a way to clean up a neighborhood. It represented an attempt to transform social relations through art. The project's imagery is personal, drawn from scenes and memories of his own life, and reflective of his attitudes and theories about life and his place in it. Its message is meant to be universal, upbeat, and appealing to all ages, and is essentially free of overt politics, eroticism, or self-reference. Instead, Guyton's thought about the universality of life, the passage of time, and the importance of human connections are the threads running through all these installations, as well as all the community and art activities that have grown up around the project site over the years. In 1960, the great French artist Jean Dubuffet observed, quote, "I have always loved, it is a sort of vice, to employ only the most common materials in my work, those that one does not dream of at first because they are too crude and close at hand. I like to proclaim that my art is an enterprise to rehabilitate discredited values," end quote. Building works of art from cast-off objects in an additive approach that we now call assemblage or bricolage has been a major impetus for art making from the early years of the 20th century. Those discredited values referred to by Dubuffet were embraced by artists moving away from studio materials and practices and into expressions sympathetic with the world around them, until we are no longer surprised, dismayed, or put off by works of art made of common or non-traditional materials. After all, we've come to realize that all of our embodied experiences with artworks, whether in the white cube of the gallery or on the street, need to be considered as situated encounters with stuff. In a culture that swings from revealing the expansive, obsessive lives of hoarders, which you see on the left, to the 30-day minimalist challenge of tiny houses lifestyles, which you see on the right, we are obsessed, one way or another, with stuff. Long before our current emphasis on recycling, artists were using stuff, consumer products, and mundane materials, cast-off junk, both for economic considerations and for the inherent emotional and social inferences that can be drawn from them. From the large quantity of objects and materials available to him, Guyton selects and juxtaposes them to suggest alternative readings or understandings, or brand new concepts. The meaning of an individual object is both complicated and enriched by his deliberate curation. Most of the houses have a defined theme to which all the objects which that house are related. For example, the baby doll house on the left, which is now destroyed, was covered from roof to foundation with discarded toy dolls in various states of repair. Similarly, the clock house on the right has painted renditions of clocks covering its exterior. The precious and ephemeral nature of life and the inexorable passage of time are inescapable ideas suggested by these works. In addition, some objects that were partially burned or structurally compromised by fires that over the past 2 years destroyed a number of houses have been developed into brand new sculptures of their own, creating yet another layer of meaning. Through his work on the Heidelberg Project, Guyton has combined and stretched a variety of art practices to blend aspects of editing, collaboration, and participation in a way that is uniquely his own, though his methods place him squarely in the traditions of modern art. For example, in the 1960s, junk sculptors such as Richard Stankiewicz, whom you see on the left, coming out of the Dada example of manipulating found objects, used used such objects and rusty, twisted metal to create spare, beautiful sculptures with enormous presence and emotional power. I take material that is already degenerating, flaking and rusting, and then try to make something beautiful of it, Stankiewicz said. It should hit people over the head and make them ask, what is beauty? End quote. Armand's poubelles, or wastebaskets, such as the one on the right, use the contents of personal wastebaskets and trash bins to combine a unique type of portrait that reveals ordinary waste disposal as an attempt to capture, control, and order the mess of everyday life. We are what we throw away. The creation of larger immersive environments through assemblage techniques connects back even earlier to the groundbreaking modernist artists of the early years of the century. The early experiments of Marcel Duchamp with his gallery intervention Mile of String that you see on the left, Kurt Schwitter's Merzbau on the right, and others laid the groundwork for subsequent generations of artists to use found objects and urban detritus as the medium for their art. Schwitter's in particular was one of the first artists to envision how cast-off objects, scraps of paper, garbage, and other types of urban debris could be put together into something new and beautiful, and that one's environment could be art. He imagined art as a process, philosophy, and lifestyle, which he called by the made-up word Merz. His studio and home in suburban Hanover, Germany was his Merz building, or Merzbau, begun in 1923. This ongoing creative project, assembled over more than 10 years, was a work without precedent, and one that even his closest friends found difficult to grasp. Schwitters himself struggled to explain what he was doing, for art at this time was what you looked at, not what surrounded you, and our now familiar terms of environment and installation had not yet been invented. Over 10 years, it had been transformed into a sculptural environment, and in the photos you see here are a series of angled surfaces aggressively protruding into a room painted largely in white, but including works by other artists and found materials, and also incorporating sound. And I should mention that the slide on the left is a recreation of a Merzbau that was done just a few years ago. The expansive, obsessive nature of the Heidelberg Project also recalls the visionary environments of so-called folk or outsider artists, such as the yard art of Lonnie Holley in Alabama, with which Guyton's work has many parallels. Art historian John Beardsley has written extensively about Holley's approach, describing how the artist built up his backyard installation, developing an almost rhythmic system of repeated painted images and words with found objects, emphasizing spirituality and religion. A strong spiritual current runs through the Heidelberg Project as well, with multiple references to God, although unlike a true outsider artist, Guyton cites his reason for creating the project as an artistic mission, not a spiritual one. But like other visionary environments, the Heidelberg Project derives its beauty and inspires our imagination through its strange and often wonderful juxtapositions of objects, words, and symbols, which are then repeated, multiplied, subverted, and distorted into an immersive world that looks familiar, but upon closer inspection is not. Its sense of spectacle is based upon chance findings of objects or forms that are removed from their typical or expected context, and then endowed with a new and insistent presence by their placement, unexpected colors, or sheer numbers. Guyton has talked about his admiration for the humanitarian philosophy of German artist Joseph Beuys. And I think here we might find some common ground between these two seemingly dissimilar artists. On the right is a work that is in the exhibition upstairs that is Guyton's homage to Joseph Beuys, and you can see that he's sort of picked up on some of the important parts of Beuys's persona. From roughly the 1950s through the early 1980s, Beuys demonstrated how art might originate in personal experience, yet also address universal artistic, political, or social ideas. This is part of the meaning to be gleaned from his legendary 1965 solo performance, How to Explain Pictures to a Dead Hare, in which materials of personal significance, one foot wrapped in felt, the cradling of a recently deceased animal, poetically suggests the healing potential of art for a humanity seeking self-revitalization and a sense of hope in the future. Boyce suggested that art, quote unquote, might not ultimately constitute a specialized profession, but rather a heightened humanitarian attitude or a way of conducting one's life in every realm of daily activity. In other words, everyone is an artist. Guyton is motivated by a similar belief in the power of art to heal wounds and make life better. In part, the credo of the Heidelberg Project reads, quote, "The theory of change for the Heidelberg Project begins with the belief that all citizens from all cultures have the right to grow and flourish in their communities. The Heidelberg Project believes that a community can redevelop and sustain itself from the inside out by embracing its diverse cultures and artistic attributes as the essential building blocks for a fulfilling and economically viable way of life," end quote. Early on, Guyton noticed that among the abandoned buildings and empty lots, neighbors would tend gardens, repurpose cast-off objects, and bring their own sense of pride to what was there. His initial foray into creating the project was built in part upon this energy as he left his makeshift studio in his grandfather's basement and began to apply objects to the exterior of the empty house next door. And like Boyce, Guyton became a kind of shaman, having often been referred to as the voodoo man, especially by neighborhood kids who look upon his transformation of their environment as nothing short of magical. His emphasis on including the visitor, the skeptic, anyone who might come by, in the process of creation at the Heidelberg Project aimed at a higher goal than simply looking at or even talking about art. His strategy aimed at creating in people an agitation for instigating questions and inspiring wonder, rather than conveying a complete and perfect work of art. Tyree speaks often about the magic in his work, saying, among other things, "I see magic in what I do as an artist. This magic helps me understand how to create compositions of unusual taste. It's a journey that keeps me searching to know more about life in general and about my own life," end quote. Tyree's artistic journey, reflected in the title of the exhibition and representing the narrative of his life, is of course a psychic journey as well as a temporal and physical one. I've always been struck how the metaphor of a journey, particularly one on water, is part of the work of artists who create environments on a grand scale. I don't know why that is, but it crops up again and again. Probably the most famous of these is Simon Rodia's environmental installation in Los Angeles, the Watts Tower, part of which is the skeleton of a ship. But to me, one of the most interesting is the ark made by Newark artist Kea Tawana. Like Guyton, she began salvaging objects from houses abandoned and devastated by the riots of the late 1960s and dreamed of building an ark. Tawana was the daughter of an American civil engineer who brought her to America after her Japanese mother died. She was orphaned as a child and by 12 was living on the street, finding acceptance in black communities where she lived off and on as an adult, always feeling herself between cultures. Her inspiration for the ark might have come from the trauma of a childhood crossing to America from Japan, a way to master her memories, be captain of her own ship, who knows? But it was certainly a metaphor for the rootlessness or precariousness of her position in society. This ark she created, and you can see her on the top there of the prow of the ship, was timber frame, 86 feet long, 20 feet wide, and 28 feet high, which she obsessively engineered to be seaworthy. Guyton's Noah's Ark on the right, made from a salvaged motorboat and found toys, has a less grim demeanor, but still conveys the idea of fellowship, rescue, salvation, escape. And so far, his has escaped, at least sort of, at least mostly. Sort of. Unlike Tawana's. She was on the last stages of construction when the city intervened in 1986. And she was evicted from the property that she was building on. Her ark had an uneasy relationship with the local community, some interpreting it as an elegy for lost communities, Others only saw junk that would keep property values low. Contradictory assertions familiar to discussions around the Heidelberg Project. Her art was condemned as unsafe by the city and ordered for demolition, although they could never find any structural flaws in it. In addition, and this sort of tells you a lot about city politics, it was never really determined whether it was a building, a vehicle, or a vessel. So they could not apply the appropriate building codes. So this poor artist was stuck in never-ending lawsuits, and she finally demolished it herself in 1988. After nearly 30 years, the Heidelberg Project has become one of Detroit's art institutions on every cultural tourist must-see list, yet its history has been rocky. Its existence raises similar difficult questions about the role of public art in communities. Through the project, Guyton asks us to rethink how art might penetrate and even ameliorate the social fabric of life. And he has asked himself how his project might reinvent the relationship between culture and public life. Embedding a project such as this in the center of a neighborhood redefines the role of artists as producers of platforms and situations that test new relationships between art, audience, and public space. Not everyone has embraced the Heidelberg Project. Neighbors have often called on city officials to sanction Guyton. The city of Detroit bulldozed some of the houses on 2 occasions, and a recent rash of arson destroyed many of the houses. The traditional claim of public art experienced beyond the clearly defined cultural spaces of the museum and gallery, that it offers a more direct, less mediated encounter with art, is at the heart of the project's identity and mission. But unlike the controlled environment of traditional spaces, reaction to public art is often difficult to map and impossible to control. It is not surprising then that the Heidelberg Project continues to inspire vehement opinions all along the ideological spectrum. Even after 3 decades, an uneasy relationship between the neighborhood and the project still exists. In the exhibition upstairs, we have tried to put the last 30 years in perspective, from the early days of Tyree establishing the project with his grandfather, and the subsequent impact of that collaboration had on the art production of both grandfather and grandson, to photographic and miniature representations of the houses, to individual works that demonstrate the various themes that run through the project, dots, faces, flags, to name a few, to Heidelberg television, one of the most charming aspects, I think, of the Heidelberg Project. Guyton has created 2 works specifically for this exhibition, one in the studio and one in the project. The one that is in the exhibition is called How Much for the City, a mixed media sculpture that makes reference to his long-standing struggles with city government. On Heidelberg Street, he is building a full-scale house entitled The Holy Place. It will rise on the foundation of the House of Soul, which was destroyed by arson. The process of its construction will, sooner or later, we hope, be able to be viewed on a live video feed monitor in the gallery upstairs. We're really hoping that between this show and the show at Das, that it will introduce this work to a whole new group of people, as well as for those of us who have looked at it for many, many years, to fix it in our mind what this project is about and celebrate where this project has been, as well as pique the interest of people who have never seen it to go and visit the project in person. Detroit is so different now than it was in 1986. As I said, I had just moved here. The residents were filled with hope and despair that you could feel even then. The Renaissance Center that was built in 1977 as the symbol of revitalization would be dashed. That hope of revitalization would be dashed over and over and over again. We've lived through ruin porn, Carmelo Viraga and the suggestion of a Detroit theme park of ruins, the bankruptcy, and many other urban troubles that have had the paradoxical effect of focusing attention on Detroit and its long legacy of artists who went their own way. Many people have asked me in the last few weeks whether I think the Heidelberg Project is part of the newfound energy of the Detroit art community. I think that the resurgence we are seeing now could not have happened without the Heidelberg Project and the vision of Tyree Guyton. His deep commitment to this ongoing project pointed the way forward for artists across the city. This 30th anniversary, pardon me, I missed a slide. This is an artist rendition of the new piece that's going up at the project. So stay tuned and go over to the project and look at it. This 30-year anniversary is an appropriate moment to pause and reflect on what the Heidelberg Project and the work of Tyree Guyton has meant to the cultural life of Detroit and beyond. Like other artists who take on the challenge of working in the public sphere, Guyton's conviction that art can change a neighborhood has resulted in that neighborhood becoming part of the broader world. The project is a unique locus for differing views on the definition of art, the development of community, and the nature of collaboration. But it also emphasizes the rewards of participation, questions the nature of power, and activates relationships. For 30 years, it has been an unapologetic and uncompromising force championing the importance of art in everyday life. I began with a quote from Dubuffet, and I'll finish with another one. Quote, "Art doesn't go to sleep in the bed made for it. It would sooner run away than say its own name. What it likes to be is incognito. Its best moments are when it forgets what its own name is," end quote. The existence of the Heidelberg Project has redefined how to name and think about art, both for the local community and for the visitors from around the world who come to marvel at this magical environment. Thank you. Now we're going to do a little do-si-do here while we get our technical ducks in a row, if you will. So while that's all happening, I'd like to introduce the real main part of this program and the thing that you're here to see, which is Tyree Guyton and Jenenne Whitfield. They are by far one of the major power couples of Detroit. Tyree Guyton, I hope I have sort of introduced you to over the last 30 minutes that I've been talking. He's an amazing person. Born and raised in Detroit, even though he's had this project going for 30 years, even though he's only 26. I got that in before you did.
I love it.
Ooh. But Tyree has done a number of things outside of the Heidelberg Project that he doesn't always get much credit for. Joe mentioned that in 2012, he did the Lorenz House residency in Basel in Switzerland, where he began making some of the wonderful prints that we have a few of in the show upstairs. He also he's done the kinds of interventions that he does in Heidelberg Street in many other communities, and has gone into communities to talk to them about what it means to him to do works of art as part of a community effort. So he has left his mark in many other places besides Detroit. But before we get to him, you have to hang on just a little bit more, we're going to have a presentation from Jenenne Whitfield, who is his life partner and business partner. Jenenne, too, is an amazing, amazing person. She is one of those people to whom no one can ever say no. I know that firsthand. And it is because of her and her tireless efforts to keep the Heidelberg Project afloat, because, of course, even though it's made with cast-off objects, these things don't get made for nothing. She has raised the visibility of the project by her work in the community, her establishment of community services, including an art school for kids. All of that has happened with the two of them working in tandem. So I'm really so pleased to call them my friends, to have been able to work on the show with them. And I think if we're ready to go, I think what Jenenne will do first, we'll see a short little video that's pretty interesting, not always so fun. Then Jenenne will add her own remarks to the discussion, and Tyree will follow up. Thank you.
Artist in Detroit is trying to revitalize an inner-city neighborhood with his art. He calls his effort the Heidelberg Project, and as NBC's David Gregory reports, it's an uphill battle.
An artist who sees the world not in black and white, but in polka dot.
I came down here in '86. It was amazing, beyond amazing. You can't put it into words.
It's kind of like what I've been saying to the world. What is art today? And taking it outside of the institutions and utilizing the street.
Somewhat infamous, somewhat mysterious.
We've been told that there are going to be bulldozers coming in here to try and take it apart.
You don't want to wake up to this every day.
This is an uncontrolled environment where anything can happen.
Art is not good when it's outside. Art belongs in a museum.
It's outfield.
Caged in a museum.
And I would only hope those who don't understand will see at perhaps another point that the mission behind this project is not to hurt or to damage.
Okay, thanks for tuning in to Back to Back, and we're discussing whether the Heidelberg Project should stay or go. Another quick call right quick. Robert, hi, you're on Back to Back real quick.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say, I think it's kind of shameful. You know, Tyree Guyton's somebody who's really taken lemons and made lemonade with the Heidelberg Project. And for the way that this has become sort of a fashionable issue for the city council to mask all their other failures.
City officials say perhaps the many meanings in Tyree Guyton's work are obscuring one simple truth.
One man's art can't become a neighborhood's gallery.
We've given you a very extreme close-up because you get a feel for some of the art that is there, old street signs, old toys, shoes, dolls, paintings from Tyree Guyton.
It's like hundreds of pairs of shoes. It reminds me of my mother's closet.
We need people. We don't need transient folk coming in looking at our garbage that has been discarded and that has been turned into quote-unquote art.
City leaders say tonight is a turning point in the old neighborhood fight, and it is time that they jumped into the battle over Heidelberg.
Colleagues, we have our 10:30 a.m. discussion regarding the Heidelberg Project. Would Mr. Tyree Guyton come to the table, please? Tinsel Williams, the floor is yours.
He would argue that it is a kind of art whose time is past. I would counter that argument by saying that the message that Mr. Guyton has tried to express continues to be relevant. That message being one of hope, growth, and spirit of community.
This project has created something great in that community. It has brought people from all over the world, and I'm talking about an area that was a war zone. And as I sit here today, I look at my awards, and I really need to ask a question about awards. Do they expire?
It was more effective than a battering ram. This old frame house, decorated with what some consider folk art, was reduced to rubble in minutes. But not everyone is pleased with the demolition.
This the only thing the little kids have nice in the neighborhood to look at, and now they're gonna tear this down.
People come from around the world to see what I do, and I was just trying to talk about me. I was just trying to get it out.
It's like turning on the light switch.
Look around you. I mean, you be the judge of that. Look around you. You mean change the neighborhood? Come on now. Flag that camera around and see all these beautiful people. Where they come from. So, of course, it changed.
Now maybe they're finally going to catch on that, hey, this is great for the city. 275,000 people a year coming here, right? People from all over the world, 100 different countries.
In der Heidelberg Street, wo vor langer Zeit deutsche Auswanderer lebten, hat sich ein Künstler namens Tyree Guyton niedergelassen.
An artist from New York.
It's just a constant work in progress, and it's phenomenal. I could spend the whole day here rather than the Metropolitan. I'm not kidding.
Tyree will be doing a commissioned work of art for the Wayne State University campus. The project exhibition will be called Street Sense.
If we can have potholes, we can have polka dots.
In the morning, you go outside for a breath of fresh air. You look across the street at this.
I want to know what's this supposed to be teaching the children about art.
What's it teaching them?
And Tyree, that's what I'm saying. He spends a lot of time with those children. That's one thing that I admire about him. Because the average child around here, say 9, 10 years old, is already drug dealers. And whereas Tyree put a paintbrush in their hand, put a broom in their hand.
It was this man who cleaned up the community, and he took all the junk he could find. That's what they say.
Faces of Scotch.
We got all the kids along our fence to hang their pictures.
I think kids to be inspired helps me to be inspired. I think that that can help you change the world, being inspired.
It inspires me by them coming through here and just to say that, hey, they got something going on over here, you know, and I enjoy that.
I just woke up one morning and I said, I want to take this as far as I can take it, you know, and, if you just look back here, you can just see dots, and all back here, dots. Down this main thoroughfare, dots.
We sit back a lot of times and we listen to people in government say, well, I don't know how to bring about change. I don't know how to bring about solution. We're studying it. Come over here and look at this. We had African-American kids, we had Caucasians, we had
Native American.
all working together collectively to bring about a change.
These shoes come from everybody, and we're putting them all on one house, and they're going to get along just fine. Art is just the catalyst to begin a new rebuilding of the city.
I would have to say that today the Heidelberg Project it's a medicine.
Is there anything else about the project that you would like to tell us?
All I can say today concerning the Heidelberg Project is that it's growing.
Wow, that's only 25 years, but we're not into our 30th year yet, so we're just now getting ready to kind of start that process. And I'm going to scooch right over and let you come on over here. So I'd like to say good evening to everybody. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Jenenne Whitfield, and I'm the executive director of the Heidelberg Project. And as many times as the story has been told, I'm going to abbreviate it and just say to you that it is true that I did turn down Heidelberg Street 23 years ago by accident. I wasn't a loan officer at a bank, and so I am a living testament to the power of art to transform one's life and also one's community. I remember when I told my mother that I was going to go work with this man named Tyree Guyton. Oh, goodness. She told me, she says, well, that will be the challenge to take you to your grave. I can't believe, and she was kind when she said that. But little did I know that it would actually be the most challenging thing that I've ever worked on in my life. Also the most exciting and the most thrilling thing that I've ever worked on in my life. The fact that we have been able to take this work to so many places, that's just a fraction, actually, of where we've been. The fact that we have spent so much time with thousands of children from all over the world, it's beyond my own belief, and sometimes I feel like I'm living a dream. So what I hope to do now is just take you on a little journey of kind of the operation, the function of the Heidelberg Project, and the fact that we tried to build something around what Tyree had created because people were so fascinated by it. And to be perfectly honest with you, as I stand back now and begin to reflect on the Heidelberg Project, a lot of the things that we tried didn't really work. And I think it had to do with the fact that we were trying to take this non-traditional animal type thing and then put it in these traditional shoes. And although there are some principles and practices that are very common, you know, like business basic 101 doesn't change, you know, they're common, but yet it just didn't always work for Heidelberg. So you're going to see this, the odds of Heidelberg having survived as long as it did with a budget and with a staff really is quite phenomenal considering what we were up against. So we start here with just, I hope I get this right here. I call it now Heidelberg 101, but this quote by Margaret Mead, and you can read that for yourself. But the reason the Heidelberg Project ever came into existence was because Tyree talked about, you know, what he was up against in that community. But going back even a little bit before that, let's look at what this community used to be about. This area where the Heidelberg Project exists was one of the oldest African American communities in the city of Detroit. It was home to over 300 businesses, and it was the last residential area of Black Bottom. When my father migrated from the South, that is the first place that he lived. And yet, after the '67 riots and a host of other things, it became characterized with drugs, poverty, and crime. But let's look at some of the historical people that were from that area. I mean, one of the houses that we lost in the structure or in the fires was the home of Wilson Pickett, former Motown recording artist. Helen Thomas actually lived a couple of doors down from the Polka Dot House on Heidelberg Street in the 30s. Barry Gordy lived in the neighborhood, and then Dr. Ossian Sweet, the first African-American man exonerated for killing a Caucasian man, I believe it was in the 40s. So it was rich in history, and yet what we came up against was just urban decay. And that really kind of became the pretext and the platform for creating the Heidelberg Project. So what our goal was as an organization was to kind of define how we were trying to function as an organization. And basically it was so we could get some money to keep the grass cut, you know, to keep Tyree curating the exhibition. You know, those things cost money to keep that street clean and to run and to work with the traffic and control all that. We needed help. So we thought about kids, and kids being such an important part of the Heidelberg Project, so we began to organize programs, and then the schools started to cut their art programs. So we made sure that there was art in schools. We also saw art as a catalyst for rebuilding a community, and we could see that just from the economic impact report that was done by Williams College that determined that the Heidelberg Project was contributing $3.2 million to the Wayne County region only. And the way that breaks down basically is that people coming into the Heidelberg Project were doing other things. Many people were coming just to see the Heidelberg Project, and of course they were buying food and gas and so forth. And then also the third one was to advocate art as a way of life. And I think one of the things Tyree introduced to me is that art was about every day. Creativity is about every day. It wasn't just about what you would go to a museum and experience and see. So we have educational programming, as I mentioned, in the schools and on the streets. We're also involved with community engagement, you know, working with the people in the community and also integrating the community. A lot of people who live in the Heidelberg Project area, you know, really weren't always familiar with other cultures and other races of people. I remember one story being told by a little boy who met an Asian man for the first time, and he thought it was Bruce Lee. That's a true story. So what we've learned, I mean, my goodness, 23 years, and we've mellowed, you know, I mean, we've been through a lot, but we have learned some things, and I think the work has really informed us, and I think that it's a lightning rod for more to come. What we call our work, and we did trademark this, is we call it Heidelbergology, because there was definitely a science to the work that we were doing. Keep in mind, there's some horrifying or horrific statistics in the community, and yet we successfully, up until our 26th year, there was not one serious reported crime on Heidelberg Street before the fires. So part of what we wanted to do was to kind of try and codify our work. What is this work? What is it? You know, what is it doing? Now, this is my work. This is not Tyree Guyton's work, and it's important to mention that. And I think that sometimes that resistance that is between us is kind of what makes it go. Because I stuck in my lane with business and organization, and Tyree was free to be an artist. So Heidelbergology gave birth to 3 core practices, and I want to talk about this. Again, we're talking about how the work informed us. So we named these things as best we could based on what was happening. Abstract advocacy, art as a medicine, and art as a catalyst for change. So abstract advocacy, and I'll give you an example of that, but what it really talked about is the introduction of new information that in the short term changed attitudes, and in the long term it changed behaviors. So we had a wonderful example. Justin, the young kid who grew up on Heidelberg Street, who was mentored by the Heidelberg Project and Tyree Guyton and everybody else that met Justin. But he came from a tough background. That's just the way that was. But today, you know, Justin, and I had to change this slide, he is now a senior at Central Michigan University. He was studying biochemistry, but now he's studying criminal justice. But he is on a sports scholarship. So that's a clear example of how this information that he was exposed to changed his life, because when you talk to Justin, you ask him, he has said that the Heidelberg Project taught him that he had choices. And I think that's really important when you talk about art as a catalyst for change. And then art as a medicine. The interesting thing about the medicine concept is that, you know, a lot of times people don't know they're sick, right? The other thing is that medicine takes a while to get into the bloodstream and work. So one of our greatest examples, I believe, of art as a medicine was one of the neighbors that lived on Heidelberg Street, Otilla Bell, who just didn't want anything to do with it. She actually appeared on Oprah Winfrey's show with Tyree. Then when Tyree went to Switzerland in 2012, something happened. She got bitten by the bug. The entrepreneurial spirit in her began to rise up, and she began introducing a way for people to, or to include her house. So she invited people to sign her house, to donate $1, and she wanted to use those funds to refurbish her house. But she didn't stop there. She then started to sell hot chocolate. But see, now I was a little disturbed because she gave us so much hell in the beginning. And I remember calling Tyree in Switzerland, and he said, "It's working. It's working. That's what we want. We want people to start figuring out how to make this work for them." They didn't want necessarily us to define Heidelberg and what it could be for them. They wanted to figure it out on their own. And so today, if you were to visit Heidelberg Street, you will be greeted by Otilla Bell, and she may have some Gatorade, or it's starting to get a little chilly, she might have some hot chocolate for you. But this art as a medicine didn't just start with the neighbors. Sometimes there were young men in prison, and they would hear and read about the man from their old neighborhood. And so many of them would come to the neighborhood when they got out. And, you know, Tyree gave them modest jobs. And this is an example, art as a medicine. So, I mean, it doesn't work for everybody, but certainly, again, over the long term, and when you're consistent, you can see these changes. But art as a medicine is not just for people who live in the community. You'd be surprised who's sick, honestly. You know, people come from all over the world to visit the Heidelberg Project. We have in our guest book records from over 140 countries, and there are only 195 or 96 countries in the world. So you've had people who come from all over the world, and I can tell you that the conversations that we've had, whether people, it doesn't matter about their economic background, it doesn't matter about their race, it doesn't matter about their sex, people found Heidelberg as a place where they could be expressive and where they could talk to themselves. So it was medicine for people outside of the community as well. So we've become a community anchor. This is true. There's no, you know, even after the fires or post-fires, the Heidelberg Project is record tours in 2015. We've had our highest sales in just some of the Heidelberg Project merchandise. So it's still going strong. And people look at the canvas and what has happened with the fires, and as fast as Tyree and volunteers got in and swept up the dust and recreated something else. Because in the end, what we were really talking about was not so much about preserving things as much as we were talking about preserving the human spirit or recycling the human spirit. And they come from all over. But there are other influences that I think are important to mention, and I'm certainly no academic. I'm somewhere in the middle. But one day, Tyree asked a gentleman to write a letter of support, and he's from your own university, and I want to read an excerpt of what Dr. Larry Gant wrote because I think it's extremely important. He was caught off guard, I believe. I'm not going to read the whole letter because it's pretty lengthy, but I'm going to read an excerpt. This morning, November 26, I thought further about the letter of support. But before I could formulate the letter, something told me you have to go over and see the project again. There is something that will be helpful. And so I got in my car, went to the hood, and wandered around, trusting the process. What I saw and noted, and what grounds this brief note, was the following statement, which is located in no fewer than 3 locations in and around the project. The work of the Heidelberg Project and its founder, Tyree Guyton, and other contributing artists are protected under the United States Copyright Act, Title 17, United States Code. All copyrights, moral rights to the extent that such rights are protected under applicable laws, and any and all rights to register and maintain copyrights in this creative work of the Heidelberg Project are strictly enforced. Then it goes on. But he says, what a powerful statement. I take words to mean that essentially not only the works but the surrounding neighborhood suffused with the works is essentially a copyrighted creative work. You have, in my eyes, facilitated the evolution of the neighborhood and art to the neighborhood as art and creative work. Thus, the community is essentially protected under the Copyright Act. This is simply incredible. As wonderful as this is, I also wanted to remind you and the readers of this letter that the Heidelberg Project continues to be a source of academic, policy-related, and arts scholarship. A brief review of academic literature retrieved under searching Tyree Guyton yielded well over 200 articles in Google Scholar. The Heidelberg Project anchors work, and then it goes on. I mean, reinvention and revitalization, local literacies, on and on and on. But the last one was art as a medicine for communities, residents, organizations, and institutions. Interesting, isn't it? Tyree, the scholarship focused on the impact and meaning of the Heidelberg Project appears in prestigious publications in social work, sociology, urban planning, blah, blah, blah. The scholarship continues briskly through 2013. While I was unable to print out the timeline of publications about Heidelberg, what I can say is that there's a steady stream of scholarly work from 1993 through 2013. Is Ray Silverman here? He may not be here, but oh, there he is. I got a whole list of essays for you as a result of this. You'll appreciate that. So then Larry goes on to say, beyond these academic references, news, and media accounts of the Heidelberg Project, they number in the hundreds. I am proud to call you a colleague, a mentor, and a friend. So when I start to think about the areas and the level of what this blood, sweat, and tears work has been, I realized that we have done something. And I know we called it, at the very beginning of the slides, I called it Heidelberg 101, but we're moving on, right? Because the landscape has changed and so has the city of Detroit. And so what we want to think about is, you know, what's next for the Heidelberg Project? What are we going to do now? So we're calling the work 3.0 now. Heidelberg 3.0. And we haven't figured it out because like Tyree always says, you know, we're making it up as we go along. But one thing we do know is that the work will continue. It must continue. We see a new Detroit now. There's people who are saying there's 2 different Detroits that are developing. And I think that the city of Detroit is in a unique position now. And we don't have to be a city where people are talking about gentrification, because Detroit is so big, there's enough room for everybody. But here's what I want to say that I think is really important. As the city does attempt to rebuild itself, practically all of the people that are coming through Detroit have been through the Heidelberg Project. People have studied the Heidelberg Project. They've taken pieces and parts of the Heidelberg Project, recycled that, and spun it out in a new idea and a new vision. That's a beautiful thing. But I want to say this too. The Heidelberg Project, for all it's been, and for all it's going to continue to be, it deserves the funding for future exploration and to give people an opportunity to see it be everything that it can be. So I could not make that statement. I wanted to say that to you. And so the future for us, I will say this, that the Heidelberg Project is like a great orchestra, and we've been writing great pieces, masterpieces. Now, in our next book, we're going to begin to play the music, and I thank you. Okay, so I don't think I need this. I was remiss, because it's my job to introduce the artist. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like you to put your hands together for Dr. Tyree Guyton.
Where's she at? There's a lady in the audience right there. You. Right there. Cool. That young lady came to me some years ago and said, do you want to come to Australia? Her. Would you stand for me, please? My family. Cool. As I look out into the audience, there are so many friends and wonderful people. I've been up here working, and there's another friend that's here, Mark, who has been working on my new project here. Mark, could you stand? My friend Mark there, him and his wife. And there's Rachel, who's been writing a blog for the University of Michigan. Rachel, would you stand for me? In the book of Genesis 1:26, and I quote, "Then God said, let us make man in our image and likeness." What is creativity today? What is art today? Albert Einstein said that logic would take you from point A to point B, and the imagination would take you everywhere. And early today, I was with Frank and his wife back there, and I spoke to his class. And I want you folks to know that this 30-year journey has been incredible. Has been incredible. Just unbelievable. And it started with my grandfather, Sam Mackey, and a lot of you folks met my grandfather, my beautiful, my wonderful grandfather, who, when I was a kid, gave me a paintbrush, and he said, I want you to paint. And as I stand here talking to you guys tonight, I can see that moment in my head, that very special moment when he gave me that paintbrush, and it was like fireworks went off in my head, and I knew that was my calling. I heard it. And I was sharing with Frank's class today, I was telling those beautiful young people that if you believe it to the point that you start to see it, nothing in the world will stop you because you see it in your psyche. And you can't stop that. A guy by the name of Jim Bishop said, and I quote, "Nothing is as far away as 1 minute ago." 1986. I was a young student over at the College for Creative Studies, and I was trying to find my way. And my instructor said to me, he said, "What do you want to do?" And I had to really think about that. And I remember that day I was standing on the porch of the house with all the polka dots on it. I was standing on the porch and I was looking out there and I saw it. I saw it. I saw the Heidelberg Project in my mind. I saw it. And when you see it, you have to do it. And I went out there and I got busy. I was driving around, myself and Grandpa Sam Mackey. He was my best friend. He was also my partner in crime. Thank you, Grandpa. He's looking down from up above. And I kept seeing it. I kept hearing it, seeing it, hearing it. The neighbors called the cops on me one day, and the cops came and said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yes." But I was crazy enough to go out there and to do it. And you have to be crazy, folks, to the point that you go and you do it. What a journey. The ups and downs of this project. It's been moments where I didn't know, and it's been times where I had to go into my secret place to shed tears. And that's another guy that's here. And we'll talk later, but I'm going to do this. This guy here by the name of Tom Porter. Right there. Wave your hand, Tom. The very first demolition, this guy drove down in his car and was collecting the artwork. He was taking artwork. He was helping me to retrieve the artwork. Tom. And I think he came twice. Drove all the way to Ann Arbor, came back. It's been my friend for 30 years almost. What a journey. What a journey. And every time the city came over to demolish the project, something inside of me said, "Do it again." Make it greater. The city came and demolished the project. And I said to them, "Hurry up and get out of here. Hurry up and get out of here." So they're cleaning up, sweeping up. Then the city came again. 2 times. And I heard that voice again. "Do it again." And I went out there and did it again. And then Jenenne Whitfield, my beautiful wife, oh, we go at it at times. Oh, we go at it at times. My beautiful wife. I'm glad that you guys are, I'm glad that you're not in my studio or at home with us, because we go at it. But she came. She came. 1993. I was sitting on the project. Didn't know what I was going to do. She came. And she said something to me. She said, "What is this?" Or something like that, right, Jenenne? I mean, whatever we talk about here stays here, right? Can you help me, because I want to get it right? You said what? What in the hell is all of this? And you also said that you're going to help me, you're going to straighten me out, right? You're just going to fix me, right? But you didn't forget that that some of the kids had labeled me as the voodoo man. So who fixed who, Jenenne?
We fixed us.
We most certainly did. We most certainly did. Heidelberg Project has been a medicine. It's been a bridge. And what I said to my neighbors, I said we can't live in this world where we are afraid of other people who don't look like us. I saw the importance of bringing the world there to their community. And if I can't get people to come to an art exhibition, then what do? You take it to the people. And that's what I did. So, if I had to do it all over again, guys, what would I change? Nothing. Nothing. We was talking earlier, and I was sharing with the young folks that you got to go through something in this life. And life has a way of preparing you. It has a way of taking, it's like a roller coaster. Up and down and all around. But when it's over, you can look back and say to yourself, that was fun. I've been having a great time. I've been having a great time. The demolitions, the fires. I was also sharing with some folks earlier this week. I was talking about the fires. I was living in Switzerland and dreamed and saw it in my mind that the Heidelberg Project was on fire before we had the fires. And I came back home to witness every single fire. And I was out there and I was looking at this project, looking at the fires, thinking about it. And I said to myself, I said, what do I do next? And then there are times you have to be still, get away, go into your secret place. And I did that. And I heard it. Again, that voice. And it said to me, start putting clocks all over the project. What time is it? So I started painting clocks. What is time? What is time? Then I began to play around and I began to do some research. And Plato said, time is the moving image of reality. And what that said to me, Tyree, this is your time to create a brand new reality in the midst of chaos, in the midst of all that crazy stuff that was going on at that time with the fires. And I started putting these clocks all over, everywhere. Clocks, time. Kept hearing it. This is your time. Make it greater. You're an artist. 2 + 2 = 8. 1, 2, 3 = 1. And I was having a great time. This journey, this wonderful, wonderful journey, this journey. I'm enjoying it, folks. I want to give a big thanks out to MaryAnn and Joe and the museum, Ann Arbor, you guys, you folks. And I see another friend in the crowd here. Maine, is that you back there? Hi, Maine Jackson. Wayne State University, Maine Jackson. Tell you something about Maine. I gotta do it, man. There's no stopping me now. It's been 30 years. I'm 26. I don't care anymore. I'm having a great time. I'm learning the importance of, Socrates said this. He said, are you afraid of dying? You can't live. I'm living. I'm living. But Maine Jackson, Tom Porter, when I was on trial, they came to testify in my behalf. Those people. Give them a big hand. Wow. It keeps getting better and better with time. As I was preparing myself for this exhibition here and working closely with MaryAnn, oh God, we was having a great time selecting the pieces to put in this exhibition, to put in the show. MaryAnn mentioned that one piece is the vacuum cleaners, and that piece is entitled, How Much for the City? I've learned over the years to ask questions, and to keep asking questions. And to keep asking questions. There's another piece that's in the exhibition, and the piece is entitled, Under Investigation. Tell you a little joke, we've been dealing with the FBI, we've been dealing with the Detroit Fire Department, we've been dealing with all these different agencies, and they've been trying to figure it out. And what I've said to them, I don't have time to wait on you, I'm going to keep creating my art. You figure it out. In the meantime, I have another plan. So I decided to build on those structures where we had the fires. And my team of folks here that's been helping me. You have to make it happen. You have to do it. You have to do it until it hurts. And then when it starts hurting, you just keep on doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And that's what I'm doing. Hey folks, what I want to do here tonight, I don't want to stand up here and preach to you. But I'd like to have a conversation for a few minutes. And so I would love for you guys to ask some questions. And I'll do my best to answer your question. And so I want you guys to know that if I don't have an answer, I've said this before, can I make it up? Can I make it up? Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great. Where's Ray at? Ray 7? Hey, Ray, in Ray's class yesterday, there was a student who said, he said, I don't understand. And I think I said to him, I don't understand either, you know, I'm still trying to figure this out, I don't understand. So I was able to relate to what this young man was saying. I don't have all the answers and I don't understand. But let's have a conversation, folks. Let's talk for a few minutes, please. I want you guys to ask questions. I want you guys to pick my brain tonight, okay? Pick my brain. I went to bed early, so I think I'm ready, okay? MaryAnn.
Yes, we really would like to have, we've been standing up here talking now for a long time, and, you've heard enough from us. So this is the audience participation section of the evening. There are people out in the audience that have microphones, so when I call on you, someone will come and bring you a mic so that everybody can hear the question. Let's start with this lady down here in the front.
Thank you. I've enjoyed your work for a long time. Can't say 30 years, but for a long time. But this was the first time I heard that you've actually taken this to different cities in the United States and around the world. And I was delighted to see the polka dots appear in all these different places. I'm curious to know, the Heidelberg Project is here and it's still here. When you leave, do those polka dots leave the other countries and other cities, or is some of it remaining?
Okay, so I'll answer that. Actually, the polka dots, every place we've been, Tyree has left a polka dot, has been invited to leave a polka dot. So it's his way, it was his way of connecting the city. So yes, in Berlin we left polka dots. I mean, we've left polka dots in Bolzano, Italy. We've left polka dots on planes. Yeah.
But you also have some installations that have stayed, right? Like the one in St. Paul, is that still there?
No, yeah.
Here.
No, that project was up for a period of time, about 6 years. So, yeah, about 6 years. Yeah, it was up.
Yeah, it was supposed to be up only for, I think, a few months. But it was so successful, and the project stayed up. We're talking about the shoe house, Soul People, until a family bought the house, and it was among family.
Let me also, I also want to piggyback off what MaryAnn and Jenenne just said. In the writings of Dr. Rudolf Steiner, Steiner says that everything is connected in the universe, and it's my way of connecting the world. It's my way of building those bridges. So every place I go, I leave a dot. I've also left in my will that when I die, my whole body is going to be covered with dots. What are you folks laughing about? And if not, I'm coming back.
Well, I think it's worth noting that when his grandfather, Sam Mackey, died, he was buried in a casket that was covered with polka dots. So Tyree is not kidding. Yes, this gentleman right here in front.
I've known you, Tyree, for about 30 years. I remember you came to my house with the hood of a car. It's still hanging there. The question I have for you is, how do you draw such perfect circles?
I learned from Albert Einstein. He said, it's an illusion.
Over here.
Yes, first off, I got to tell you, I was born and raised, or I spent most of my childhood in that very neighborhood. I'm not a student. I moved away from Detroit and came back a few years later. And the first thing I did, I used to hear about it, and I used to walk from Kirby and Bobby, and that's where I live, right across from the park and CCS. And I said, what the hell is this? But I got to tell you, the thing is, it was sustaining and inspiring, even though I didn't know what they were doing. Expressed it in a way, making reality, your own reality, out of all of the chaos. And I think that's the most important message I get out of your work. As a person who was born and raised in Black Bottom of Detroit, I don't have to explain the past to it. You know what I'm talking about. And it still does that for me today. But the one thing that I was curious about, the question I want to ask, it's not a hard one, but I know it's a continuation of demolished. Or was there something else about the arson? You sort of alluded to what you did. Let's keep going. But do you know the origins of it? Do you have any more thoughts about it? Because I'm curious about it. Why then, why now was the arson done? There's so much sort of things, conspiracy about what do you think? This dominable spirit that you see that, and I'm glad that it's there. I see it. But I'm curious what you thought about it.
I want to go back to what I said earlier. I mentioned that I had this dream. I have chose to look at it, the situation from a philosophical point of view, a metaphysical point of view. I believe this here, that everything in this universe that's happening is supposed to be happening. It has a way of testing you to see what you're made of. And for me, I was upset at first. I was trying to figure it out, and I believe sometimes you just have to let go and go with the flow. And I began to see something very magical in it. I began to see how I could take that situation and make it greater. I also want to say this here. It has put me in a position where I'm learning to love my enemy. I'm going to teach them something. I'm going to show the world, I'm starting with myself, the power of art. It's very powerful. And so I choose to use art as my weapon to say to the persons or whoever's been setting it on fire, ha ha ha, I got something up my sleeve. You burn it down, I'm going to do something else.
I remember one of the first times that we started talking about this show, and as soon as I got to the studio, you pulled out this piece of twisted metal that had come out of the fire. Do you remember that? And you had painted it to make it into another sculpture. And that moment of transformation was just, it's a small scale version of the kind of magic that happens at the Heidelberg Project, where, something comes out of nothing and lemonade comes out of lemons and, all those cliches. But I think one of the things that is really striking about Tyree's work and the Heidelberg Project is his ability to make beauty out of what other people see as just ugliness. And that's a very, very powerful ability to have. There's a question right there in the middle.
Was Coleman Young the mayor when the first demolition started? Thank you.
Yes.
The question was Coleman Young the mayor when the first demolition started?
And I just want to add to his credit, he was also the only mayor that at least visited Tyree and signed the guest book. Never have we had any other mayor to actually visit the Heidelberg Project or to even call us to their office.
Wasn't he the mayor that gave you the Spirit of Detroit Award? A hot minute before the first demolition?
That's part of the magic, MaryAnn.
There's someone right in the middle there
Yes.
who's had his hand up for a long time with a black t-shirt. Yeah.
So could you give us some insight on how the work of the Heidelberg Project is related to work that you were making while you were a university student?
Did everybody hear that question?
No, can you say it again? I didn't hear.
Oh, can you give us some insight on how the work of the Heidelberg Project was related or somehow precursed by work you were making as a student at the College for Creative Studies?
I took my instructor's advice, and he said to me, what do you want to do with your artwork? And I had to really think about that. And so in 1986, I had this epiphany. And so I started creating the Heidelberg Project. I see the project as a canvas. And I'm working on this great big canvas. But before creating the project, I was always working on small pieces in my studio. And there are some people like Tom who would come to visit me, Maine Jackson, the guys would come and visit me at my studio. So I was creating these small pieces when I was a student over at College for Creative Studies, and then having that conversation, it just grew. I tell you what I want to do next. I want you to think about this. I want to polka dot the moon. Think about that.
What about the landscapes that you started off painting in the beginning?
Oh, Jenenne also said to me to mention the landscapes. So I started off painting these beautiful landscapes, and it got too easy, and I knew I wanted to go deeper. It's kind of like this newology that I'm playing around with, which is 2 + 2 = 8. We'll talk about that later.
Yes, back there.
Hi. First of all, I just want to say how impressed I am that you've managed to coin a new ology. I just think that's so cool. I love words. Anyway, When was the first moment that you noticed that the Heidelberg Project was really taking a hold in the community?
When the people came and they started raising hell, I knew it was working. Because prior to the project, the people was very quiet. I believe they was waiting on Santa Claus, and so when I created the project, people started coming and saying all sorts of crazy things to me about the project, and I said, damn, it's working.
I want to add something to that because I think it's really important. I also think that the fact that the Heidelberg Project had been allowed to exist in an area that was just being torn apart spoke volumes about how people did respect it and appreciate it, even if they didn't understand it. I think that's really important to acknowledge. 30 years that project has basically stood undisturbed.
Yes, this gentleman right down here in the green shirt.
Terry, I had a question about your earlier, you talked about the creative studies, but could you talk a little bit about your elementary education, the importance of your family in developing your ideas? Did you go to Detroit schools? What a good experience, or could you reflect on that a little bit?
Yes, I can. I hated school. Yeah, she validated it. I understand, yeah. Detroit Public Schools, my family. Let me share this story with you guys. Once again, whatever we talk about stays here. I remember telling my mom that I wanted to go to art school, and she said no. And I said, why? And she said, people that's in the art world, she said, they smoke weed, they get high, they're homosexuals, and they're white.
Yes, right here in front.
Hi, Tyree. My next door neighbor was in one of those pictures. He collected paint and brought it down to you, maybe more than once, I don't know, but some of that paint is mine. And I wonder, there's a lot of people here that have paint in their garage, in their basement. What kind of way is there for people that just get up one Saturday and say, oh, I think I'm going to go deliver paint to Tyree's project? Like, how would a person arrange to make that used for good? Talk about that.
You said it. Wake up one Saturday and say to yourself, I want to take some paint down to the Heidelberg Project. You just do it. But let me tell you, I'm looking for bright colors. That's what I'm looking for, okay? Now, if you come with, you come with a lot of white, I'm gonna turn you away. I need color. Yes, just, put it in your car and just bring it on over, yeah. And thank you for the paint you brought in the past, okay? Thank you so much.
Right in the center. You who've had your hand up for a long time.
Hi, thank you for coming.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm doing great, and you?
Yay, I'm so delighted. So you said that you see it. It's an epiphany.
Yes.
Can you maybe talk about your insight, or offer some insight on your creative process? Is your creative process just like a spark of lightning? Or why polka dots? Were they also, you saw them, or?
What is your name?
I'm Michelle. Nice to meet you.
What's your name?
Oh, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle. Michelle, I like you.
I like you too.
A lot. Should the rest of us just leave?
My grandfather and I were sitting in the kitchen, at the kitchen table, and we was talking about a planned bid, and that day that we were sitting in there, it was on a Saturday, and we was talking about a plan B, and he had some jelly beans that was on the table. And I'm sitting there having this conversation with my granddad, and I said, wow, jelly beans, plan B, polka dot the house. But I want to share with you the secret to my madness, okay? I hear it. And yesterday at the talk, in race class, I played some music, some Miles Davis. And the reason why I was playing the music, I said to the students that it's important that you hear it. I hear it. And what I hear, I see it in my mind. Did you get that? 2 plus 2 equals 8. So you have to think outside of the box. So I'm going to repeat it again. I hear it, and then I see it. It's kind of like when you hear music, you know, you hear some music, and it makes you dance. Wow. It's like that. You were just dancing, so I saw it.
Thank you. One thing I want to just add to that I think is really important is that I think what I noticed and learned from Tyree is that he would trust his instinct. As crazy as it may have been, I think it's a powerful lesson in that, is that we get afraid of what we feel in exchange for being like everybody else. And I think that's where we're missing something with that. Dare to be different, dare to follow that intuition in you. That's important.
Jenny, can I? The young lady, Aku, when she invited me to come over to Sydney, I went over to study the area. And you saw it in the slide presentation. It was a whole park. And I said, let's do the whole park. And we made it up. And you know, the reason why we made it up, because I saw it in my mind. You see it. You see it, and then you trust yourself to do it because you see it.
Cold. Okay. Whew. Yeah, really. How about all the way in the back there in the red striped shirt?
The master.
Takes one to know one.
Talk a little bit with the fires recently happening and everything. Talk a little bit about how you sort of come from this evolution of here to forgiveness and what that sounds like and what that feels like.
Carl, it was important that I release that anger. The anger, if you hold on to that, it will kill you. And I didn't want to die, so I had to let it go. But then I read something, and Dr. King said this, and I quote, he said, love is the only weapon powerful enough to make your enemy your friend. And when I read that, I said, this is it. Letting the anger go and replacing the anger with love. And Janine and I had a conversation earlier today, but we was talking about that, you know, loving yourself to the point that you can love other people, and then going deeper than that, loving your enemy. Now, John F. Kennedy said this, forgive your enemy, but don't forget his name.
Yes, back there, in the back.
A lot of docents in the crowd. Would you like to share a couple of comments about a particular piece in your retrospective that we might share with children?
Can you say it again? I did. Yeah, thank you.
There are a lot of docents here who we tour children, and would you like to make a couple of comments about a particular piece in your retrospective that we could share with children?
Yes. The faces, those images. What I say to young kids, I tell them to trust themselves and to let go and to be free and not be afraid, not be afraid to make mistakes, because mistakes, for me, is part of the magic. So that's what I tell young kids. And when they come over to the Heidelberg Project, I tell them, don't come over there with a pencil with an eraser on it, because we don't want erasers, So the mistakes are part of the magic. So letting them go to be free.
Tyree, I want to interject with a question of my own, pardon me, everybody, because there's one thing that I was supposed to bring up when I introduced you, but I forgot to, and Jenenne reminded me a little bit later, and that is that recently the College of Creative Studies, your old school, gave you an honorary doctorate degree, which is why he becomes Dr. Tyree Guyton. And I know that as a result of that, you're working on a dissertation. Would you talk about that a little bit, please?
Do we have any CCS folks in here? Okay.
Too far away for them.
I was a student over at the College of Creative Studies in the 80s, and I was working my ass off. I really wanted to be successful, and I remember one day my instructor came and said to me that, "We don't think you fit in here." And I kept looking around and I said, "We? Who in the hell are you talking about, we?" and so he said to me, "I think you should go someplace else because you don't fit in here." And I said, "Okay." I was very disappointed. I was upset. I was mad. And I said, "Okay." And I left. And I started the Heidelberg Project. It came to me to create the Heidelberg Project. And then after 25 years of working on the project, I remember one day Jenenne called me and said that she received this letter from the College for Creative Studies, and that the Board of Trustees, the president, all got together and said, "We got to give you your doctorate. Do you burn it?" And I said, "I don't want it." That was ego. That was the ego. And my wife and I, my beautiful wife, and when I die and come back, I'm coming back as Jenenne. She said, "Move the ego out of the way and go and do what you need to do." And they said, "We want you to graduate. We want you to wear a cap and a gown." And I had this goofy hat on, and so I did.
But you turned the gown out.
Yeah.
That was a piece of work. It was a work of art.
I couldn't help it. I heard it once again. And so I decided I would put my own spin on it. And so, yes, and so I'm currently working on my dissertation. I was spending time over in Switzerland. I was actually come over here to work on the dissertation and to write about it. And I've been working, I don't know if Bradley Taylor is here, but Maine Jackson. Once again, Maine Jackson is part of my advisory team. I think Akua is part of my advisory team, and Jenenne Whitfield. And so 2 + 2 = 8. Heidelbergology, seeing it, hearing it, touching it, feeling it. All things, everything is everything. And I'm just having a great time, guys, making it up today. The College for Creative Studies did me a favor, because they made me go deep inside of myself. And I said, "I'm going to succeed. I'm going to do this here." So I want to thank them for doing what they did. Thank you, CCS, College for Creative Studies.
I think we have time for one more question. So, yes, you in the middle who can raise your hand really high.
Think about We were there, my friends and I, a couple of days ago, and
Hold on just a second.
Was, "This looks like so much work." Thank you. This looks like so much work. When you have a vision, how do you share that vision with others to help you do it?
You know, I heard something a long time ago, and I'm going to share it with you. When you find something in the world that you love to do, you'll never work a day in your life. I'm having a great time. I'm having fun. 29 years. It's been wonderful. I saw the need to share it with the world. And Jenenne said something about people being sick. See, you cannot heal the land until you heal the people. So I think we get it all mixed up, you know. People are talking about heal the land, save the whales, you know, save the people. That's why I do it. And I want to go back over to Carl. I remember Carl and I coming over, and Carl and I was sitting out there talking and just saying to Carl, you know, just having those moments of exchange, using the project as a medicine. Because if you can touch the brain and you can touch the heart of people, oh my goodness, all of the money in the world can't buy that. And Carl, I want to thank you for those conversations, because I want you to know it was reciprocal, because you gave me something to think about, Carl, when you came over there in my office on the project. Don't you love my office on the project?
Let me tell y'all something for real, okay? That Heidelberg Project has been animated for the most part by Tyree Guyton every single day. It has been a love affair. Nothing could come between him and the Heidelberg Project. And I want to share something with you that one of the city's representatives told me just recently.
Honey, I have to say that only you can come between me and the Heidelberg.
Oh, very deftly caught, Tyree.
That was real good. That was smooth. Anyway, this man said to me, the day that Tyree Guyton stops working on Heidelberg Street, puts down his paintbrush, will be the end of the Heidelberg Project. He's earned the right in their minds to continue the Heidelberg Project as long as he wants, but the city is not interested in developing any kind of a policy to support this kind of thing going forward. Now, I think that's a shame, because it was the arts that held up the arms of the city of Detroit as it was working on its comeback. You see? So we're gonna have to work on that.
All right, I saw two hands there. Can we take these last?
Yep,
Yeah.
we can take that one, yes.
Yourself entering the fine art scene more now and entering the gallery space, and is that something that you want?
Let me think about that, but I want to say this to you. It just came to me. We have a friend over in Sydney. Her name is Shireen. And she said something. I'm going to answer your question by sharing this with you. She said, give it to the wind. So I'm going to give it to the wind and let it take me where I need to go.
One more question. Yes, you right there with the glasses.
Hold on just a second.
Yes.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
That's 3, and that's you.
Thank you.
Don, yeah. I wanted to hear what you would say more about creativity, because we hear a lot about somebody's made it big and they're so creative, or there's a TED talk and isn't creativity wonderful? And yet, when we look at the schools or how we're raising the children, really every single minute of their day is hedged about with instruction and how they're supposed to be, and the teachers don't have any chance to do anything creative because they've got so many things they have to get through exactly in such and such a way. And then after school, the kids have to do this thing and this thing and this thing. And there's no time to hang out, build a fort in the woods, and there's no time to do what they like. We had some kids over here at the museum doing a project in the summer. They were doing math for half the time, and then they would come here to the museum and make some art, and it was really fun. And we gave them these materials and said, you can do what you like with these. And they could not believe their ears that somebody said, you can do what you like, because they never, ever hear that. And I think we're just giving our children so many little rules and regulations, and it's not just kids, it seems to be from the top to bottom about what they must do, that people don't have time to think, to dream, to join unusual things together in their mind. And for all the talk about how we love creativity, everything seems to conspire against it.
I want to say this, and for the sake of time, I'm going to make it fast. Yes, you, ma'am. Up in the gallery, there's a television set. I had it fabricated. Last year, somebody came over and maliciously dropped off a television set over on the project. And I said, damn, who would do this? I was dealing with the fire, then someone came over and dropped off this television set. And they dropped it off in the middle of the street. It was on a Thursday. And I decided to just leave it there. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Went home and told Janine about it. Sunday, I went back over, and it hit me. Clean it up and create Heidelberg television. So what I did was that I had a friend of mine to fabricate this television set, and the kids in that area, I had them writing TV shows for me. And they would sit behind the television set, and they would act it out. They wrote all these television shows, the kids. And what I said to the kids, I want you to use your imagination. I want you to visualize. And whatever you do, it's all right with me, because I had them thinking.
Our questions, what can you do?
Go ahead. Piggyback.
Thank you.
Tyree, sometime before I met you, I used to see circles around the city of Detroit. And there was a buzz that there's an artist in our midst who is in protest of what's happening to our city. That was long before I met you. I just want to know if you would have you just speak a bit about that, because that was very effective too, to see those circles that just sort of appeared in places, and people said there's this artist, you know, who's trying to tell us something.
I remember that day. Maine Jackson came to court that day, and I think he was on the witness stand, right? And I left out of the courtroom, and Channel 7 News was standing out there in the hallway, and Val Clark stuck a mic in my face, and she said, if the city demolished the project today, what are you going to do? And I don't know why I said it, but you know, it came over me. It was like something came over, and I said, I'm going to polka dot the city. And she said, what? And I said, because I have to educate city government. If you can see the Heidelberg Project and not see everything else in the city, what's going on in the city, then I got to teach you to see. And so I started this movement, and people started coming from all over the world helping me to make polka dots around the city.
Last question.
Do you have any plans of getting more involved with the University of Michigan in the near future?
I think you should put it out there.
On that note, thank you so much, Tyree. And
thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, folks.